Have you ever, as a manager or leader, felt frustrated or impatient when teams often fail to progress? Perhaps you repeatedly said to yourself, I've been through this so many times. What do you see? Okay, I've been crystal clear with my expectations. Why is it so difficult for people to understand? Finally, you cave in and take matters into your own hands, personally filling in the gaps and shortcomings. If this sounds familiar, you may have fallen into the compensation trap, compensating for conditions that you're facing, and compensating for non-shortcomings, flaws, and limitations instead of improving conditions so team can live up to your expectations. Many inexperienced leaders and first-time managers fall into the compensation trap. And unfortunately, when trapped, it can become a difficult habit to get rid of. And for some, the path is partly intentional. And to be fair, most do the best they can with the conditions they're faced with. For example, a new manager can start by setting clear expectations with the team. Then they monitor for outcomes. And for various reasons, they don't seem to notice any progress. And then they go back to setting clear expectations because they thought, maybe I wasn't clear with my expectations. And they, time and time, repeat this without seeing enough success. So finally, they get tired of it and intentionally start to take matters into their own hands. And they start to compensate for shortcomings and limitations. And as of that, they start to see more progress than they did previously. So they continue on this path. And over time, they get caught in a trap. However, they're not really noticing that they are caught in a trap. Most are only focusing on the benefited progress. So they see, hey, this is progress, great, I'm going to continue. And for others, it could be somewhat unintentional. For example, a new manager copying someone else's, like a previous, they saw that the previous manager did this, so I'm going to copy that, because they might think that this is what a manager is supposed to do. Or it could be that a manager copying another manager because they see that manager in my company is making more progress than I. That said, it's not really significant whether it's intentional or unintentional. The significance is really about whether it's left unattended or not. Because if it is left unattended, it can spread throughout the organization. One manager to another. After all, progress and results are really important for companies. That's probably one of the biggest thing that companies are measured by. They take precedence. So a vicious loop has emerged, and an organizational habit has been created, and eventually will be maintained. A new norm has been created. And the trap has become more pervasive and robust, and it's even more harder to escape from. So worst case, inertia and entropy emerges, and the original intent of creating a workplace where people can use and develop their brains fades away. And the organization has adopted the unwillingness or inability to change and change circumstances. But this rarely comes to mind for an inexperienced leader or manager when they're frustrated, impatient, because they failed for the nth time. How do you then notice that you've fallen into the trap? Well, you likely mostly focus on addressing symptoms. A clear example, perhaps by default, you as a manager is acting as a proxy when a team member is having feedback to another. So instead of creating and fostering psychological safety. You feel that you don't have time to think about, reason about, and work on improvements. I wish I had more time to discuss what comes next. Perhaps I will someday. Extensive coordination and juggling is needed throughout the organization to get work done, and likely because there are many dependencies in the organization, and there won't be meaningful progress unless there is juggling. Extensive nagging, nudging, reminding people, making sure that teams are synced. You're never experiencing any improvements or rarely experiencing significant improvement over time. So the wheels, they just keep on turning. The org just chugs along in the same constant pace. People have a sense that no matter how hard they try or what they try, nothing leads to progress or improvement. your explanation and excuse falls back to, if I don't take responsibility, if I don't act, no one else will. I have to do this. I have no choice. Teams' mainly priority and focus is to ship features. Delivery, delivery, delivery. Get shit done. We don't have time to learn, not just yet. And depending on the domain you manage or lead, you either only focus on solving technical, product, or design issues. People and problems are often circumvented. You work around them. You pretend that problems don't exist or ignore them. And finally, many people or groups in the organization are compensating for shortcomings and limitations. So if you notice that you're not the only one, many are doing it. That's a clear sign that you're caught in the trap. So how do you escape? You need to develop curiosity for your human organization. You're doomed without curiosity. Your understanding of a situation is always incorrect. When it comes to human organization, there's always unknown unknowns. So you should be asking yourself, is our approach and methods appropriate under these circumstances? If you're caught in the compensation trap, you will likely haven't used appropriate methods. So explore additional tools, methods, and practices until you find the ones that are effective. Prioritize and reserve time for sense-making and experimenting around improvements. How you choose to spend your time is a choice. Each person decides how they spend their time. Reshift your focus towards understanding and improving work conditions. People are not the problem. Circumstances affect and influence people. I will repeat, people are not the problem. If you continue to believe that people are the problem, then most likely you're part of the problem. And so start with yourself and stop sanctioning norms that compensate, passively or actively. So for example, if you are a constant proxy for feedback, then you might be sanctioning an environment where team members don't dare to speak their mind. So work yourself on moving yourself out of that situation. And hopefully you know some people that are not caught in this trap. So reach out to them, ask for help. Hopefully they will be able to help you escape. And perhaps controversial, but in some cases it might be appropriate to address that you at some point hired someone that is not suitable for the job. Or maybe your predecessor did. Or circumstances have changed. Or perhaps you were setting clear expectations from the beginning in most part, and perhaps some people didn't have the appropriate experience or interest to live up to those expectations. Thank you. Thank you for listening.